Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Conversation with Al McFarlane. And I am not Al McFarlane. Al, our wonderful host, unfortunately was not able to make the show today, and he asked me, Antonio Rosell, who some of you may have seen on some of the previous shows. He asked me to fill in for him today. We have a wonderful show for you today, a wonderful conversation about food, about culture, about the role that food plays, not only in sustaining us in life and in good health, but also in building bonds with our families, with our communities, building identity and celebrating that identity, that culture, those connections among us within our own cultures, and then also with other cultures. Food as a way of learning about not just ourselves, but others who live in and around our communities, others with whom we share space in our cities. Now, I'm going to precede this by saying I am not an expert about food. I am not a researcher or an investigator about food, but I have been eating for the last 55 years of my life, and I enjoy it very much. And I think it's a huge and wonderful way to get to know each other and the world. So a part of what prompts the conversation today is the launch of a new book by a wonderful organization called Appetite for Change. And this book, which I believe was just published July 9th, the official publication date, is a book called Soulful Recipes from a North Minneapolis Kitchen. And one of the things that we want to do with you today is, of course, to have a chance to listen to the authors of the book, the people who have made this book possible and who have collected these recipes, but also to let you know about a really important event to celebrate this community success and this opportunity to see the traditions of our cultures in print ready to be shared with others. So if you have your calendars ready, if you have them available, make sure to write this date down: Thursday, July 25th, which is next week. Next week on Thursday. So Thursday of next week at the Capri Theater on Broadway Avenue in North Minneapolis at 5 p.m. There will be a wonderful event that you are all invited to. It's a book launch, 5 to 7 p.m. And we'd like you to come and attend. You can RSVP. They are asking for people to kind of confirm if you're coming to the event simply by sending an email to giving@afcmn.org. And AFC is Appetite for Change, so that's how you can remember that. And MN, well, we're in Minnesota, so afcmn.org, giving@afcmn.org. Send an email so you can come to this event 5 to 7 p.m. At the Capri Theater, and it's going to be wonderful. And right before I bring our guests in, we have three wonderful guests. Before we bring them in, I want to make sure to share a little bit of something that a quote that I read a while ago and that has resonated with me for a long time. And it's written by this really prolific writer, a Chinese intellectual of the 20th century. His name is Ling Yutang. And in case you want to Google it, his first name is Lin, and the second name Yutang, Yutang. And the quote goes, it's not going to be exact, but love of the most sincere form of patriotism is love of the foods of your childhood. And that resonates with me because I remember the things that I ate when I was growing up in Peru. I'm not from Minnesota originally. And that always is something that brings me back to that time in my country and to the people in my family with whom I shared those meals. And I think that may be something that we all have in our histories, right? And reconnecting with that the love that we felt as we were having our first meals, and shared within family, shared with friends, shared with relatives, shared with culture, are a really important component of happiness. So anyway, without much further ado, I am going to bring our three guests, and I'll just say a tiny little bit about them. Three wonderful people, Miss LaTasha Powell, Miss Michelle Horovitz, and Miss Princess Titus are here to talk to us about food and about their wonderful book, about this upcoming event. Oh, and I should also say something too. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. So anyway, so here we go. I'm going to ask our producer, Cooper, to please bring in our three wonderful guests. It's going to be a wonderful conversation. And here we have Miss LaTasha Powell, Michelle Horovitz, and Miss Princess Titus. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. I think we have a lot to talk about, and maybe we'll start just by maybe go around and give us a brief introduction about you and your history and food, how food fits in your life and why you are excited about food. I know why I'm excited about food. And actually, I just had lunch before our show here, so I would be sure to not, feel a little weak. But anyway, who would like to start? Any volunteers? Oh, no volunteers yet. Well, I'm going to ask Miss LaTasha Powell, see if she will say a little bit of something about herself and her history and her excitement about this book and food and all of these things.
So, Antonio, of course, you went backwards in my mind. I was like, we're going from the oldest to the youngest. But of course, I will be last. Well, like Antonio said, my name is LaTasha Powell. I'm one of the co-founders and president of Appetite for Change. I'm a native Northsider, Northside, Minneapolis. Um, and I'm very passionate about food justice and the food movement in my community. And I got involved because of that. I really felt like, as a black woman who's from this community, who's seen the foodscape in North Minneapolis change over the years, and I'm sure that it will come up further in our conversation, but to see how the foodscape has changed during my life here in North Minneapolis to where it's at now, I really wanted to make it my personal and fortunately became my professional mission to make sure that um, all people in North Minneapolis have access to good, healthy food.
Thank you very much for sharing that. That's a wonderful explanation. And I wonder if you could go in a little bit of detail about kind of how you became involved with the issue of food insecurity. And maybe for some of our listeners who may be new to the topic, what is food insecurity, and how did you decide that this was going to be a mission that you worked on?
Food insecurity means for me when you don't have access to the necessarily nutritional food that you need to sustain and healthy and just make you overall be great. And in North Minneapolis, we currently have two grocery stores. And at a point in time, when I was a child, there was five grocery stores. There was also a lot of small mom and pops grocery stores that I would say about four or five of those in the community, and they was walkable. So we was able to walk to get access to what we need. So when I'm talking about food insecurity, not having that access, not being able to walk, not having many choices or where you can go to get the necessary food that you need. And I'm talking about real food, whole food that you can take home and cook a good meal with your family, friends, or even neighbors. How I got started in this work is it was actually before I met these two lovely ladies, my two co-founders. I was on my own personal mission to really understand what I was consuming in my body. And I realized that I started doing a little research. I started talking to a few butchers, and they just was talking to me about how they break down beef or how they broke down pork and what's to come afterwards and all the chemicals and things that they put on food to preserve it. So I looked into it a little bit, not really knowing having the knowledge that I have now, and I realized that um, what is approved for us to eat have small amounts of chemicals that should not be consumed by humans. And I was like, wow. So to myself, I thought like they are killing us slowly through our food. And so I just like, okay, can't eat meat no more. I have to learn how to grow food. And so I just threw some seeds in my backyard and didn't test no soil, didn't do nothing, didn't water, didn't pay attention, but the food grew. It grew. And I was like, wow. And I went off and I just started eating off the food for that season. And so I made a promise to myself from that day forward that I will grow my own food and not just me grow, but how can I reach my community? More importantly, people that look like me in the youth to realize that growing your own food is important.
Wow. Wow, that's a wonderful, wonderful story. Thank you for sharing that, LaTasha. I want to make sure to bring in your other partners here as well. Maybe I'll ask Miss Princess Titus to tell us a little bit about your story as well, on how you came to this work and where you fit and all of this.
Thank you, Antonio. Just hearing Tasha is so invigorating. I will say, I want to thank all the listeners and Al McFarlane for allowing us the space to share this. It is refueling of me as a co founder to hear each woman share their story and to have that space to share narrative is important. And I know that's why you do the work that you do. I came to Minnesota from Chicago about 29 years ago. And I was a refugee from Chicago, being a very violent area, plagued with gun violence. I just wanted to save my two children. I got here and went to school for a few different things, but I really wanted to grow food because my grandmother had a friend who grew food and my grandmother cooked food. She went to school for culinary arts at the age of 54. Like, there goes my chances of being a first time college student, right? And so she cooked the food and her friend grew the food. And my dad's mom actually grew food and didn't eat any food from the store and kept, I didn't know at that time she was treating cancer. Which became very evasive when she started eating regular or food from the big produced food that she didn't grow herself. And so I came here and got an opportunity to grow food with the Hmong farmers on Olson Highway. Don't remember any of their names. They didn't speak English. I didn't speak Hmong. And they taught me how to weed with a butcher knife and deter pests with cayenne pepper and castile soap and take that hat off and get that sun in your scalp and your hands in the dirt. And I ate great that year. My daughter actually took her first steps in a cucumber patch. So that's kind of how I became interested in food. As Tasha talked about, like the journey before it, I think we all three had our own passions about food. And then when we connected, it was organic pollination, cross pollination between, the Black community, native North Minneapolis from Louisiana for LaTasha, me from Chicago, and then Michelle, who's not a Black woman. And food brought us together. It blurred our lines and it allowed us to build community beyond our neighborhood. And I will hand it over to Michelle to share her story. Now I'm doing your job, Antonio. I apologize.
No, that's fine because you're doing a great job. But I just wanted to say thank you for sharing that. That is another beautiful, amazing story. And this thread of growing your own food in the place where you're at, also, in working with the Hmong farmers and kind of having that opportunity, even without language, to connect through not just, I mean, it's food, but it's the process of growing the food that connected you, right? And it's working together towards this goal. And there is a certain optimism that is required to invest effort in planting, in farming, not knowing how it's going to turn out, but you have to have in your heart a belief that, God is going to take care of this. Nature is going to take care of this. This is going to come out. If I put my good effort in, if I have faith in my good effort and in the universe being a good place for me to be in, this will come out. I will be able to eat. So I like that very much. And I'll follow your lead, and I'll say now, Michelle Horovitz, tell us a little bit about your story, please, and tell us how you all got to know each other and work together. And yes, ready to hear you.
Yes, and some of us don't even have to put any work in. God and the universe just provides, like Tasha, her first growing season, just really do it. That's how powerful I feel like the universe is to give us the food that we eat. And I have a childhood connection as well to growing food with my grandparents, and just learning at such a young age how much better that green bean or the cucumber, the tomato tastes right off the vine, right in your backyard. And so that was just a way that I was really able to connect with my elders, with my grandparents, and learn. And then I just kind of got the bug as a young kid, a third child, sort of coming home from school, two working parents, both older siblings out working their jobs or doing their after school activities, and just kind of fending for myself. So I just started like getting really creative at a very young age in the kitchen, like making weird combinations and just like I was really little. I had to climb up on countertops to get the things. And but then, as I got older and really actually grew a love of cooking and creating recipes, I had sort of a dream I'd go to culinary school. But I did go the traditional route and studied at a 4-year college, and sort of was like scared in a way. Just my background and the culture that I'm from. It's like you go save the world or become a doctor or a lawyer or a business professional or maybe like a teacher or police officer, firefighter, but like a chef, like going and being like, it was like being an artist. It just wasn't something that I saw as like an acceptable career path. So not that like my parents ever said, don't go pursue your dreams, of course, but I think if I had taken that risk, I would have moved to New York City. I waited tables since I was 14. I've always worked in the food service. So I might have gone and just rented a room on Craigslist and gotten a job at like Danielle or some really fancy place waiting tables and done culinary school. But I put that dream on hold, and I actually went to the University of Minnesota Law School. I graduated in 2005. And 2005? Yeah, 2005. And I moved to Miami. I worked as a public defender, but I couldn't kind of let go of that dream of doing something professionally in food. And so I actually took a leave of absence from the public defender's office in Miami-Dade County to enroll in. I did enroll in culinary school at Johnson & Wales, but 2 weeks before that, 2 weeks before my start date for class, I met my mentor and chef, who's actually, her dad is from St. Paul. Her husband, born in Mexico, immigrated to Wisconsin and then moved to St. Paul. So they have like strong Minnesota roots, is Michelle Bernstein. And so I was able to go and work for Michelle Bernstein in her, she just won James Beard Best Chef of the Southeast. And she was the first woman to win that award. So I had the privilege of learning from her. I had a little side hustle as a catering, like a little like parties for friends and family down in Miami. But we had our first child and moved back here, and I was looking for a way to combine my passion for food and for racial and social justice, not wanting to be a public defender, feeling like I was just a cog in the wheel of criminal injustice that was purposefully designed to get the results that we currently have, and knowing that I probably couldn't hack it as a award-winning chef, because you got to work like every night, every weekend. Tough to have a family, tough to have kids, and so I was like searching for my soul, and I was fortunate to meet Princess and Tasha both in very serendipitous and different ways, and the rest is what we call a beautiful history. So thank you for listening.
Yeah, no, thanks for that story too. So I'm a little bit curious about how you all met. And Michelle, you just mentioned it was a serendipitous history. Now, just going through, what I've learned about your organization, Appetite for Change has been around since 2011, if I'm correct. And so, how did it end up that the three of you got together? LaTasha or Princess or Michelle, how did that happen? And how did you you founded the organization after meeting and saying, hey, this is something that we could do? How did that work? Any volunteers? I might have to ask LaTasha then.
This is actually better will come from Michelle. She is kind of the glue that brought us together. So I would like for her to kind of start it off, and then me and Princess can add in a little later.
Okay,
Fine. I tried to say not it on the private chat, but it didn't work. I'm gonna say a little bit and then toss it over to P, because she's just a better storyteller, let's be honest. Serendipitous because a friend introduced Princess and I, someone who she had worked with and I was just getting to know, who kind of knew where Princess was in her life and knew what some of my ideas were about food. I was like, there's got to be a way to do something with food that is like social justice and community building and community organizing, and not just like what you think of food insecurity, like how we kind of started the conversation. That's not really what we all started this around. It was food as a tool for social change, as opposed to food as a band-aid to fix societal systemic issues, environmental policy issues that really only the people who are most affected by an issue are the best folks to rise up to solve it. So I was looking to be a catalyst on the north side. My dad grew up on the north side. My grandparents both came to North Minneapolis off the boat from Eastern Europe, and just felt a really strong connection to the community that my whole dad's side of the family called home for so long. And seeing as a public defender in Miami-Dade, seeing in the courthouse the teen cuisine food truck, that kids who had been locked up in cages for stupid shit that kids do. Oh, can I say that? Sorry. Stupid stuff that kids do. Sorry. Stupid stuff that kids do. Apologies. Sign up for the subscribe to the thing, everybody. But seeing these kids who are coming out of cages and these retributive programs, or like they're gonna fix bad kids or something, and then they come out of their program and they have to get a job, and so they put them on these food trucks, and that's their job to kind of re-enter society. I just, thinking about the lack of access to food and seeing the food landscape. When I was in law school, I lived in the warehouse district. Now it's the North Loop, but Cub on Broadway was my grocery store, because there was no food, in the warehouse district. There was nothing they have now. And just seeing the difference between the Cub on that West Broadway and then the Cub over by my parents' house, like closer in the out in the suburbs, and just questioning that, seeing my clients in Miami come in with kids eating, hot Cheetos and Mountain Dew at 2 years old for breakfast, and just wondering, like, what could I do more upstream? So that friend knew my goals, and she introduced me to Princess, and we had a really transformative first interaction on 11/11/11. And then Tasha and I met also serendipitously because my my friend who I connected with culturally from Africa, who's a Sephardic Jew, and I'm an Ashkenazi Jew, and we were building a relationship. She was learning about what I was trying to do, and she was trying to convince me that I should go back and get another degree at Metro State. And she was inviting me to her class, and I went to the class. It was a community psychology class, or community health in the community psychology department. Tasha will have to tell you that. And Tasha was doing a presentation about an internship she had done at the Tubman Center, and she actually told the story about like becoming a recent vegetarian and being a North Sider. And I harassed her teacher until her teacher got Tasha to contact me, and then Tasha and I met in late summer, fall of 2011 as well. And I actually take credit for actually introducing Princess and Tasha physically in the same room for their first conversation. They both knew who each other was and had a lot of deep family and social connections to each other, but had never actually met.
Look at that.
P,
what'd I leave out, P?
I don't think you left out anything. You did a great job. Yeah, I will say I think the part that stands out to me about how we all connected in the beginning is that Tasha was in school. I was in school. We were both at Metro studying different things. And how in some communities you don't have capacity to be at the Capitol fighting for advocacy change, to be out networking, to meet people who are doing the same work. Or, you might meet somebody at the co-op while you're shopping, but do you even have capacity to follow up on that? So even when Michelle says that Tasha wasn't following up, I'm like, okay, she was probably in finals and had other stuff going on. And then also, how do you find spaces that are safe when you cross outside of your community to meet somebody from another culture? How do you make sure that relationship isn't extracting or diverting from your true main mission? So I will say, when all three of us did come together, we had ideas about what we were passionate about. Then we had ideas and we had visions for each other. But that shared vision of community, having voice, having space, and being able to access and grow and create their own spaces where they could grow food and cook food, and having that knowledge. Tasha was real big on what are water soluble vitamins? Why do you eat them? When's the best time to eat them? I didn't know any of that. Michelle had an idea, and I want to say maybe before that worked with was that a food assessment at North Point with some of the community members who were doing food justice work in the community, Michael Cheney, Devon Nolan, just some of those people. So she had an idea of what was going on. I was in the field of reentry. I had planted strawberries with my son on his 16th birthday, and 2 weeks later, he passed away. He was a victim of gun violence. And so for me to be offered a space, Antonio's in shock. I just dropped that on you. I apologize. But I've been on the show before, and I don't want to leave that part out because it is a true part.
It's huge. I'm so sorry.
That
is terrible.
Thank you. But it's a true part of what the garden offered, and how even in that trauma, I needed that safe space with LaTasha. I needed that safe space with Michelle. I needed to be around community and giving them options to have their voices and stories told. And that was healing for me and my family. And here we are 13 years later, after Anthony Titus transitioned, 12 years after Appetite for Change has been around, and I still believe that food is the tool that can create that social change when it comes to even some of the harm that our young people are enduring and engaging in our community. So I would say that was the part that was left out. Thank you for listening. Tasha, did I leave something out? Tasha crying. Don't cry, Tasha. Tasha's the cry baby or the cry big mama.
Oh my goodness. This I mean, this is life, right? I mean, this is how it is, and this is what the experience of life is. And we all have different experiences through it, but people grow old. There are tragedies that people endure. There are terrible things that happen that can't, in some ways, be avoided. And people find the ways to be strong and find that strength to continue and find the faith to keep planting, right? And to keep growing. And
Antonio, if I could add to COVID, we had these beautiful programs. We cooked and ate and talked with 400 community members using trauma-informed nutrition as a model to hear our people's voices. How are you being resilient with one grocery store or two grocery stores or a grocery store that sells outdated food? And they like that cooking and eating and talking. They wanted that fellowship. So that became our flagship program. They also wanted farms. Right now, we have 3 urban farms. We grew 7,700 pounds of produce last year. The young people also wanted a space to have some say so. So we have a youth training and opportunity program. All of the things that the community said they wanted were what we put in place. And then COVID happened, and there was no more space to cook and eat and talk. Our community meal box program came out of that pivot during COVID, but also our volunteer program grew. And we were able to offer people spaces of healing and solace in the land, the same way the Hmong community did me, the same thing I needed to do after I lost Anthony, 6 feet apart, safely social distance in our urban farms. And so that building community beyond our neighborhood on a bigger scale, finding out that people wanted access to the land and after COVID needed to do that healing. And we didn't, it wasn't a part of our mission, but so many organic things came just out of us bringing food, growing the food, cooking the food, eating the food to the forefront of the social change issues. So I just wanted to point out that what I needed and what I did, what the women offered me, was something we were able to offer back to the community, and hoping that idea goes out to society as a whole.
That's very, very powerful. It's you mentioned COVID just a minute ago, and I'll tell you a little COVID-related story. We were many years ago, before COVID, we were visiting Peru, which is my home country, and I had gone with my wife and my son, who, at the time he was, my only son, because later on we have 2 more kids, but we had gone to Peru, and my wife had gotten sick. She's from Ohio, not used to the food that we eat down there sometimes, and she had gotten pretty ill and had not been able to eat anything for a while. And we had been in the north of Peru, and then we came back to Lima, which is where I'm from. It's the largest, it's the capital city of Peru, and I have family there. And we had gone to visit an aunt of mine, Julia, my aunt Julia. And I remember when we went there, this was must have been almost 20 years ago. And my wife hadn't been able to eat for a while, but we went to Julia's house, and she made this delicious soup for her that, and a couple of dishes that felt very healing to her. And, then she was kind of on demand after that. So the 2 connections are, one, how food cooked by people who love you is healing, and then also the connection with the loss of my aunt Julia, who died from COVID during this time of COVID, and how that, and just kind of, in a way, thinking back about that, and kind of all of the trauma that went on throughout the world, as a result of that disease, and but also the role that family connection and strength also has through that. And we still remember my aunt, and we talk about how that soup was so good, and and my wife says, oh, I just felt like I was coming back, and so, and she didn't know her before that trip or after, but the memory that my wife has of Peru and of healing and of love is through food, from this aunt who is no longer here with us, but that lingers, and it's interesting to me. It's related, and it's such a, in a way, eating together is such a fundamental part of our life as humans, our sociability and connection, and part of spirituality too, right? I mean, a lot of times we break bread. I mean, even that expression of breaking bread. So, very interesting. Thank you all for each one of you sharing this, these different aspects. And I'm going to make sure to do something, though, that I mean, we're getting into this wonderful, wonderful conversation, and we have hardly talked about your book. And I want to make sure that we talk about your book, because I know our listeners want to hear about it. And tell us a little bit about what's in it, the process of developing it, what you hope people get out of it, how they can buy it, where they can learn more about it. Who wants to go first? Anybody? Don't be shy. Oh, everybody's being shy.
Tasha.
Yes, Tasha. Okay.
So what I would kind of start with that question. What I hope people get out of this book is really good recipes, be able to bring their family together with this book and make some of the delicious meals that, the 5 individuals who helped put this book together, whose recipes are in this book, that they can have a little bit of us at their house. It was a long time coming. This was one of our dreams in the beginning when we met each other, was to create a cookbook. And I'm so excited. It's so beautiful. It's so cute. And I'm not just saying it because it's ours, but it's amazing. When the book came to the office, I just fell in love with it. You get the little copy, and I was like, I don't know about that. Anybody gonna like that book? But when the real copy came, I was like, oh, this is so great. I just took it and just wanted to just start sharing it with community members and families members and everybody else. It's so excited. They was looking at it. They was like, this is real. They love it. It got Northside on there. And it got some very great recipes in there that calls for you to really sit down and be intentional about what you're preparing and what you are putting in your body from your family across many different cultures of food that kind of intertwine culturally with, majority of some of the African traditional dishes. It's amazing and great. We worked on this book before COVID, and of course, it's getting final now. And I would have to give all that good credit to Michelle of making sure that we saw this book through. It was very tough and difficult for us during COVID to try to get this created, and she did not stop. And if you know anything about Michelle, when she has her mind to something and she want to get something done, she's going to get it done. And so that's where. But I really just want people to bring this into their home. And when they're bringing it into their home, read the little stories that's inside of it as well, and not just pay attention to the recipe. Because with those little stories, you'll find a little bit of pieces of each one of the individuals who have parts in this book about their story. And this book was very important to me because although my grandmother and her sisters are not here anymore, but there wasn't no professional chef. There was cooks, and they was great, and they was amazing cooks, and they fed the community, their family, and I miss that food, and I miss their cooking because I could not cook like them. But hopefully, with me just sharing the importance of cooking real food, that hopefully it can strengthen relationships within individuals' families. You shared earlier that we having a cookbook event at the Capri Theater next Thursday, July 25th from 5 to 7. We will be there. Please come out and join us. You can also go to our website to purchase these books. We also have these books at some local Black-owned bookstores, one in Minneapolis, one in St. Paul. Sorry, I don't know the name right off back. We also will be selling it at our cookbook event. And then I will go ahead and turn it over to Michelle.
I mean, you can turn it over to me, but you pretty much covered everything. I don't know, Antonio, do you have a specific question, or Princess, do you want to share? He had that. Now I'm remembering. Tasha, you talk longer than I've ever heard you talk on one of these interviews, so I forgot that there was already a question. So, Pete, you want to go?
I do. I want to say those books are being offered at Strive Publishing, and we'll also have a book release there on August 11th, and then Planting People, Growing Justice bookshop, and we'll be there October 5th. Just two things I thought you talked about. The cookbook came from, so our young people created, were the ingenuity behind Breaking Bread Cafe. They were the young people who were like, we don't have a sit down restaurant in the corridor West Broadway. So if we work a job and we have to take our money, if there's a graduation or a funeral, we have to leave our community and spend our dollar to sit down and eat food. And then it's not real food, and people don't often treat you well when you go outside of your community. So the ingenuity behind Breaking Bread, super long story. You have to check out one of the other videos or come out and see us at Appetite for Change, and I'll tell you the details. And then the next young people did the viral video, Grow Food, and then Breaking Bread. We're looking for Forever Home. So being that it's closed, we wanted to offer some of those menu items to our community because it was built with the community. So it's not like big chain restaurant. We're not sharing the recipe to the secret sauce. You can learn how to make Tasha's candy yam recipe. You can learn how to make Michelle's matzo ball soup. You can learn how to make my rendition of my grandma's fried green cabbage with a little purple cabbage in there, so I can be eating to live and not just living to eat. Those recipes are in there. And so we wanted to be able to, we're always pivoting. And when you have lack of access and all these disparities, you have to really get creative. The Community Cooks Meal Box was us being creative, and the cookbook was us being creative as well. So I'm hoping people can miss shrimp and grits and miss that kale salad and make it at home. Teach your young people how to mix, measure, stir, shake up, make that dressing, and then eventually stop buying store-bought dressing and see how easy it is to make your own dressing, and then save some money, and then change your mindset around, is food too expensive? Is it really expensive to eat healthy? And then change your mind around, do I not have time to cook? I do have time to cook. That's what I'm hoping the cookbook does for people. What this experience has done for us. And then I think Michelle should talk about how it all came together.
Yeah, I can talk about that. Thank you, Princess. That was awesome. Good setup. So yeah, like Tasha mentioned, we talked about making this cookbook from day one, like when the youth were standing outside the corner stores handing out samples of mango salsa to show people with the recipe that you could get all the ingredients to make fresh mango salsa at the corner store. And we're like, damn, this is so good. We'd be like just eating it plain without chips, and we gotta get this recipe out to the people, right? So I mean, it was a long time coming, but really after Breaking Bread Cafe opened, and Lachelle Cunningham, our founding executive chef, brought sort of her global comfort food, her culinary point of view, and it meshed with the Appetite for Change mission, and bringing community voice and recipes, and having a sit down restaurant, and actually asking the community what they want, and hearing that they want, like, I think someone actually wrote like a Chinese soul food fusion or something like that, and like to put something weird and wacky like the kimchi Reuben on the menu, and that's like a bit of my culture, and like just like how those mashups really came together. Beth Dooley, who is a James Beard award-winning cookbook writer, author, in collaboration with Sean Sherman, they wrote The Sous Chef, which is also an amazing book. And so she approached Lachelle, Tasha, Princess, and I, and just said, I'd love to help you guys bring that dream of writing a cookbook to reality. And that was in like 2019, I think 2018, 2019. So we talked about it for a while. Should we really do this? And then we committed to it. And then the pandemic hit, and it was really tough. So picking it back up during the pandemic, and Beth and I making sure that we collected all of the stories from the authors. Every chapter has a different individual story from one of the authors. The three of us, Lachelle Cunningham, and then Daryl Lindsay, one of our almost since day one team members at AFC, and Harvey Rupert, another, both Northside community members, but also a former board member at AFC. So all of our stories, but then all of the stories from AFC. So like the story about the youth with the mango salsa, the story of how the cafe was born, the story of that Princess said, come to AFC, get the cookbook. You'll get almost all the details of that story in the cookbook. So, so Beth and I were kind of like the collectors of all the information and recipes, and helping curate and put things together. And it was a really amazing process to learn about and be a part of. And I hope what I hope is that, like Tasha said, people take this cookbook and get with their kids and get in the kitchen and make some good food, and like learn the techniques and ideas, and take those and be creative and make your own version of that, like, and do something a little different, and put your swag on it. Yeah.
That is pretty great. And I'm of course I haven't read the book yet, right? Because it's barely just out, and like you said, the book launch party is this 25th of July, next week. But just hearing your description of it, one of the things that I really admire about it is that, well, number one, it's a book of recipes, as you have mentioned, that have all these recipes that have a lot of meaning to the people that have contributed as part of their families, to each of you that have contributed recipes. But there's also stories in there, right? There's stories about Appetite for Change, about some of the work that you've done. And, like I said, I haven't read it, but I imagine that there's also stories where people are reflecting on those recipes that they're contributing to the book. So in a way, it's a how to cook this dish kind of book, but it's also a kind of a testimony in a way, right? About people's individual and family histories, and then also a testimony about the power that you all have had to create an organization, to follow a vision over time, to put the work that is needed to create this beautiful thing that can be shared with others and can touch others as well, while also transmitting these traditions from the different cultures that make up an important and key place in our state. Yeah, North Minneapolis, part of Minneapolis, part of many histories, many cultures, over time. It's amazing. And I mean, to me, it encapsulates a lot of there's a lot going on. And here's, this object that a person can purchase and read through and get all of this of it. So that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Any items, any ideas that, if people wanted to join, after hearing this show, I'm sure there's, hundreds, maybe thousands of our listeners. I don't know how many listeners we have, but I mean, it must be very many, thousands. People are probably excited about what you do. And they're like, they might be saying, I know that I'm thinking this in my head, how do I become part of this work? How do I contribute? How do I support? What will you say? What are some things that people can do to support the mission of Appetite for Change and to support your work and participate?
I would say to reach out to us. We love to hear stories. We love to connect. It's more than a transactional experience. When you started out saying, how can people support the work? First, let's just connect. Let's see who we are. Let's hear your food story. If you're interested in volunteering by yourself, you can reach out to us at volunteering at AFC, like Appetite for Change, men.org. And if you're interested in volunteering with your company and they want to support or sponsor our benches that we're building next year at our urban farm, or what were we saying? We were saying that we wanted to have somebody adopt our conference room. We just moved into a new building. And so can we get it painted? Can we get it beautified? Because we've always done a lot of good work with limited investments into us, even celebrating. Email Tasha and just tell her thank you. Send Michelle a great thank you as well. Celebrate us, volunteer with us at our farms. Come out and meet our young people. Let them hear the stories and the challenges that you had growing up. Come to one of our community cooks events. We are back cooking and eating and talking about the change that we want to see twice a month, cooking real vegetables. And inside of that community cooks event, we have a little farm stand you could participate at. So you can pick up real greens and produce that's not grown with chemicals at one of our community cooks events. We also have 3 farm stands that we're hosting, one in July, one in August, and one in September. So you can stop by the farm stand and pay what you can for produce. You can also make a donation. Of course, we can't do this without resources, without time, talent, and resources. So you can go to our website, which is afcmn.org, and you can make a donation. We'd like for you to become a monthly donor. It's those sustaining donors that allow us to continue to be able to envision, develop the work, make changes, and employ our young people. We have 30 young people right now in our office. I told them, I'm doing an interview. If you see me in the room, they said, so should I be quiet? I said, no, you should make faces at me. Because you have to be able to be loud and be a child if you're going to truly, like LaTasha tells the young people, grow your own food and cook your own food, changing your internal environment so that you can change the external environment, and dispelling those myths about growing food being like slavery. So we don't want them to be quiet. We want them to be big, bold, vivacious young people who eat real food. And we want them to make faces at me while they're walking past the window. So join us. Our demographic is real food for real people. And I'm looking forward to seeing and hearing from some of the listeners soon.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And the youth are the truth. So if youth are interested in working at AFC, they should come and apply.
Well, look at that. That sounds like a lot of different opportunities for people to be part of this and to support a movement, really, right? I mean, it is a movement that you're building, and you have been building for a while now, for a long time. And there's still a lot more that it sounds to me you want to do. I'm going to just make sure to let everybody know, please, please, please visit the website of Appetite for Change, afcmn.org. All of your information is there, correct? How to donate, how to send you a thank you email, how to connect with some of the programs and activities, your monthly food. There's probably a Facebook channel as well. Oh, that's the place to go, afcmn.org. Oh, and we have another URL at the bottom of the screen, Is that still good? Appetite for Change,
It's
MN?
it's the longer one. You can do the longer one or the shorter one. AFCMN.org goes to the same place as Appetite for Change MN.org.
Oh, that's
And we
wonderful.
got the Facebook and the Instagram and the LinkedIn and all the things.
And the cookbook launch. Please come out to the cookbook launch. Register. We would love to see you as we celebrate. We can sign your cookbook. We can talk to you about tweaking the recipe, because often sometimes people want to hear from the person even after they're reading the recipe. Like, how do I really do this? We're here for you. Please come out and join us.
So people can get tips on how to make the food. Now, will there be any samples of food available? I see Michelle.
There will be food and beverage. So come
Food
get your
and
snack
beverage.
and get your snack on.
Yes. Oh, my goodness. Now, that sounds like the place to be next Thursday, July 25th, 5 p.m. at the Capri Theater on Broadway Avenue in North Minneapolis. Everybody, please come and show up. Don't forget to subscribe to Insight News as well, to all of our listeners here. And well, I see that we have about just a couple of minutes left in our show. I'm wondering now, thinking about the future. So, immediate future, next week, July 25th, wonderful event at the Capri Theater. But 2 years, 5 years from now, what do you envision for Appetite for Change as part of your work? Anyone?
Madam President.
I envision a permanent home for Appetite for Change, a small little, home space in North Minneapolis where we can have our urban farm, all of our program admin, bring Breaking Bread Cafe back, to the community is well missed. But to have a space where we own and we can be in for generations to come. What I always shared with these ladies was, being here in North Minneapolis, I've seen a lot of things come and go outside of my community. And the three of us work so hard to keep this organization with the support of our community, with our donors, and all of that, to keep this organization here, that I wanted to say, here go a permanent home. We are here to stay. Come in, make it yours, and come sit down and break bread with us.
Love it. I love it. I think that's a
Amen. Amen.
And Tony, I would like to add, at this cookbook launch, we will be honoring one of our co-founders, Michelle Horovitz. For everyone who does not know, she had resigned from, she don't never like accolades, but I'm giving it to her, from the organization in January. So we're gonna have a moment to acknowledge all of the hard work that she put in to make sure that, we are here to have this conversation to this day. And like Princess mentioned, we don't know how to celebrate, but she's going to be celebrated, and she don't have no choice. But I just wanted people to know that. So come celebrate us launching the cookbook, and celebrate, the transition of Michelle from a staff, but to a long-term volunteer, and always a co-founder of Appetite for Change.
And help birth the vision of AFC's future home, bringing back Breaking Bread. Yeah. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you so much, Antonio and Insight and Al and everybody. This has been so fun.
Thank you all very, very much. LaTasha, Princess, Michelle, congratulations on all this amazing, wonderful work you are doing. The event next week, July 25th, 5 p.m. at the Capri Theater. I hope we get 1,000 or more people there. I hope there's lots of books that everybody purchases. It's going to be wonderful. And I look forward to staying in contact with you. Thank you so much for our show today. Thank you to Mr. Al McFarlane, and to Insight News, and to the production team for our show. And everybody, don't forget to subscribe to Insight News. And thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.